So, my mom wasn't allowed to have her kids for a good long while, and when she did, it was my little brother and my little sister. Me and my older brother Eric grew up in the system, living through hell. In 1984 or 85, my dad got busted with 38 counts of cocaine possession with intent to sell. And according to my dad, he also sold an illegal AR-15. So I went into temporary foster care. Well, I went into actual foster care in the state of Nebraska. I was at a good foster home outside of Scottsbluff. It was on a farm. Me and my older brother Eric were there together. There was a calf born, and the calf was born red. So we got to name the calf. And as inventive as we were, we named it Red. Y'all have no idea how much I miss my older brother, but also, he doesn't miss me. He's shown that. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care how I'm doing, what I'm doing. He just straight up doesn't give a shit. And that hurts, don't it? Those of you who got family that don't give a shit, you know what that feels like. So there was a kid that was my roommate in Mount St. Vincent's. His name was Dominic. And he went by Domino. He was a bit bigger than me. Quite a bit. A lot heavier too. And I was sleeping. And he mounted up on me. I had my sheets up to my neck and across my back and had his knees across it. I had my face shoved down into my pillow and was pulling my pants down. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. I couldn't nothing. I couldn't turn my head. He knew exactly what he was doing. There was a staff member there that couldn't keep his hands to himself. I tried to tell on him. I ran into another kid from Mount St. Vincent's many years later, homeless on Pearl Street. Well, a couple of them actually, but one of them remembers the dude who was doing that. And I guess he got arrested. He got arrested all the way back in the 1980s. So he did eventually get arrested. I remember that when I told people what happened, they just blew it off all nonchalant. I wasn't going to let it go. They did remove Dominic. They put him in a different room. They weren't very nice, though. And some of the older boys, there was a priest, like, he had some fancy title, I'm sure. Probably even had a real name, who knows, so long ago. I was trying to tell him what happened, and he let some of the other kids beat me up. There's a chapel there, and that's where I was beaten up. They were all older boys. And they were doing it because they were told to. That priest never laid a hand on me, never touched me, ever. Never hit me, never kicked me, never raped me, never molested me. Never put his hand on my shoulder. Never hugged me, never nothing. Never touched me. He didn't have to. I wasn't in there because I was a bad kid. I wasn't in there because I was some sort of a violent monster. I was in there because my parents couldn't stay off drugs. I was in there because in the 1980s, the temporary foster care system in the state of Colorado, you were only allowed 2 weeks per foster home, and you weren't allowed to go to the same foster home twice because of attachment issues. They just keep telling you that your mom's gonna come see you this weekend. She's gonna come see you this weekend. She's gonna come see you this weekend. Oh, your mom's finally gonna get to come and take you guys home. Right? Oh no, it wasn't you guys. Me and Eric were only in our very first foster home together. After that, we were separated. Mount St. Vincent's used to be a group home in the 1980s. Then it became a children's behavioral health center. It used to have a statue of St. Michael outside. The statue in the picture is a different statue. There was also a period of time where there was no statue. That's a church, folks. See, most of the people that go to that church, that used to go to that church, it's a Catholic church. They held Catholic Mass in that Catholic church, communion and all that. That place was horrible. There was one good thing about it. One. I got an education. I got an education in how horrible people can really be. Also, at the time, well, they made sure everybody took drug classes and that everybody took sex ed classes. We also had to sit there and listen to therapists. There's goddamn psychobabble. For you guys, while your first-hand education growing up was playing with other kids on the playground, my education was sitting through classes with girls who had themselves sliced up one side and down the other. The system is a lot different than this image that you get in your head from Hollywood. It don't work the way that you think it does. That's somebody using their imagination. When you watch those NCIS shows and the Law and Order shows, that's people's imagination. It doesn't show the reality of the situation. It doesn't show how little effort is put in for a male victim, especially if he's homeless, especially if he's disabled. Regardless of age. Boys don't get raped. Boys can't get raped. This is the bullshit that we sell each other as an excuse to look the other way. And we got people who want to have babies. Some of them are exhausted. See, like a woman, a man has to be aroused in order to, well, have sexual intercourse. Now, we've had legal contraceptives for a long time for both men and women, and I tell men, it's on you. It's on you. It's on you to keep yourself safe. If that means abstinence, it means abstinence. If that means bringing your own condoms so that you know they don't have holes poked in them, bring your own condoms. And if you're not interested in sex, just don't. As a man, you should be allowed to say no. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, that could catch you a charge. Depends on how psycho she is. How much she believes she's owed. You say to believe the victims, but you won't even listen to male victims. By the way, when the law says that you're not allowed to send a kid to a foster home for longer than 2 weeks, they're not allowed to go back to the same foster home that they've already been to. And you don't have any other foster homes to put them in. Where do they go? Places like Centennial Peaks. So I'd been in foster care for a while, and finally I'm going to get to see my mom. It's been a long time. I don't have any idea how long it'd been. In order for me to be at Centennial Peaks, my mom had to come sign some papers giving away my rights, giving away her rights to me. Now, while we were in there, this is my first day there. They told my mom that I could either go to juvie at 6 years of age, because there was no foster homes to put me in. There were no group homes to put me in, but they were looking for some room at a couple of places, one of them being Mount St. Vincent's. And they were just gonna keep me there at Centennial Peaks until there was an opening. That was in Boulder County, Colorado. See, because while my dad was in prison, my mom wasn't. My mom kept on messing around with cocaine. I've never tried cocaine. Growing up in the system with therapists always wanting to impart the knowledge that they've learned in their psychobabble classes. So I'm well versed in that bullshit. Most of us who grew up in the system are pretty good at breaking it down for you. We grew up in it. We learned very quickly to pay attention to our surroundings and to read people. We're taught and well versed in who we're supposed to go to if we're abused. And of course, at 6 years old, being in a class with these boys and girls who have gone through this, some of whom, in the process of you being there, are going to perpetrate against you. Because that's what they've lived, that's what they've learned. Sure, you tell them that it's not okay, but their experience is that that's how you dominate someone. It is absolutely a measure of control. Eventually, there was an opening. I got to spend about 4 months in Centennial Peaks, 3.5, something like that. 7 months at Fort Logan, 7 months at Mount St. Vincent. By then they had some new foster families, or some openings with a lot of those foster families that were full. I got to spend about 2.5 years overall in the temporary foster care system, and the 1.5 at the very first foster home. That's 4 years out of 18. That doesn't seem like a lot, but While you're locked up there, you're not learning how to frolic with the other reindeer, so to speak. You're not joining in any reindeer games. There's also the time that I spent in the institutions, the foster homes, and the group homes. So, 4 years, that's just for the foster homes. There's also about 2 years worth of being in group homes. About 2 years worth of institutions. 3 years worth of institutions. See, that's where the mentally ill tag really comes in. Comes in handy for anybody that wants to be predatory, and parents are the worst about it because they're the ones that have the most access to you. And like most family, they know how to push your buttons the most. And how many of you, when you were depressed, your family wants to call you mentally ill to justify whatever it is that they're doing wrong? In the system, you're taught to go to specific people for help if you're being abused. You're supposed to go to friends and family or a trusted adult. The friends and family, that's for safety in numbers. The trusted adult is because they're supposed to care enough about you to call it in and help make sure this person doesn't do it to you again in the reality that we all actually live in. If you're a boy, you're fucked. Nobody cares. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry that happened to you. Now will you please move on? How dare you speak up? How dare you come forward? When your predators are in positions of power, it gets even worse. When you're a child, your parents have a government-mandated dominion over you. They own you. You are a possession. And it is their job to treat you as best they can. Sort of, right? How many of you... we'll go explaining this to the girls especially. How many of you girls, after being raped or molested by your dad, your brother, your uncle, your grandfather, and also to those of you girls who were molested by a sister and a mother or a grandmother or a friend, be they male or female, I'm not going to pretend that you don't exist just because it doesn't fit a certain narrative. If your predator, as a woman, if your predator was a woman, your predator was a woman, and it's not okay to pretend like you must be making it up just because you were molested by another woman. Now, how many of y'all went to a trusted friend or family member, a trusted adult when you were abused and got blown off? How long did the abuse continue after that? Did it start off with a lady bick and some chicken scratches? And develop into arm slices and even deep gouges in your legs the longer it goes on? That first time, though, that first time is what seals the deal. That first time with the lady bick. You're just trying to get heard, and you're afraid to even speak, and you need to get their attention and get them to fucking take it seriously. God damn it. Self-harm is never self-harm. Self-harm is always a cry for help. And that cry for help needs to start with someone who listens to understand, listens to your story and your experience. Instead of playing 20 questions, getting it all jumbled up, and then they're confused because they weren't listening, they were busy grilling you. That's if you can get someone to listen. How many of you did the cops, when they showed up, they gave you a choice between staying with your predators at home or being locked up? That even though there are supposed to be laws to protect children, and you're taught the people that you're supposed to go to for help, the people that you are sent to that are supposed to do something about it are going to prey on the same things as your parents. Nobody cares. You're mentally ill. So all the hoops they tell you to jump through are all fucking bupkis. It's all bullshit. I didn't know shit about white people until I was 15, just so you know. Before that, people were just people to me. Most of the people that I grew up with in foster care, and that's what they call it. Even if you're in juvenile detention center or a mental institution or a group home, they still consider it foster care. So you're in foster care. Nobody's ever going to hear you. And people told me over and over and over again, hey man, you got to go to your family. My family don't give a shit. I told you that. I showed you that. Even if I pay them to care, they're not going to care. They're just going to take my money and run, and I told you that. I told you how it really is for us out here. When I advocate for assisted termination of life for us, that's for a reason. We can't function. We learn that our words don't matter. That anyone who wants to harm us can harm us whenever they want, call us mentally ill, and get away with it. Girls don't cut themselves over physical or sexual abuse. They cut themselves when their trusted adult blows them off. Usually that's their mom or their sister. Boys are different. We already know no one's going to hear us. We already know that if we act like a girl to try to get help, we're going to get made fun of and bullied and ostracized, picked on, beaten up, and we're not allowed to defend ourselves because the term mentally ill means schizophrenic, dangerous person to most of you. And those of you who say things like, oh, well, I don't think of it that way, you're not most people, first of all. And second of all, if you don't think of it that way, then later on when you do something fucked up, you shouldn't play it that way. When you use the term mentally ill, you're using it as an insult and to discredit the victim. This is why people who are called mentally ill have it worse than people who are called the N-word. What happens if you call somebody the N-word in court? It's not going to fly, is it? It's not going to go well, is it? Obviously not. But when you call somebody mentally ill, you're insinuating that they're not telling the truth, they can't tell the truth, and they're probably crazy. You're mentally ill. You're mentally ill. You need help. How many people wanted to pull that? When they victimized me over others who did wrong, how many men have harmed me over horrible things that women have done? Most of my predators growing up were men, but not all of them. All of the people who were sexually predatory towards me as a child were men or boys. Most of those to do so since I've been an adult have been women. Mount St. Vincent is a bad place. My mom did come to visit me once, her and my dad both, at Mount St. Vincent. I remember they took me on a day trip. They hadn't been together in years, and they weren't together, they were just... This is after my dad finally got out of prison. I remember my dad being pissed off because he wanted to take a picture of this geyser in the middle of the road in Denver. It was a sewer pipe that had water pouring out of it. He was going to take a picture of it, and he lost his lens cap. My dad's not any better of a person than my mom is. No child should have to live like that. If you have any reaction to being beaten up, they put you on meds. If you have any reaction to being physically assaulted, sexually assaulted. Nobody cares. They're gonna put you on drugs. For somebody like me, those drugs, these medications, made me suicidal and made me act on suicidal thoughts. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why between the age of 6 and 17, they never once tried going, hey, maybe we should see how he does without the medications. When I was 17, I finally got to experience life without medications. It didn't stop the abuse. But at least I wasn't drugged up and zombied all the time. I mean, I felt horrible all the time. Kids are going to have energy. If you keep them cooped up, they're going to have a lot of energy. But when you drug them to the point that they don't know what the hell's even going on, you drug them to the point where people can't really tell if they have emotions or not because they're too doped up to react to anything. And then they're assaulted for being in that state of mind. Bullied and ostracized, and then they come home and they say, hey, I'm getting beaten up at school for being different. You should try harder to fit in. How can I? The United States is a horrible place. I know, I live here. The more poor you are, the less you matter. The easier it is to harm you, and the more money there is, supposedly to help you, but it's not going to help you, is it? No. The majority of it is going to go to services to send you to mental health, to send you to the police, to send you to mental health, to send you to police, back and forth, every time you're harmed. Until you have a mental breakdown. My mom wasn't there because cocaine was the children in her life. My dad wasn't there because cocaine was the children in his life. Where were they? Meanwhile, my mom and my dad both tried blaming me and my older brother for their cocaine habits, use, and sales. And they keep changing their stories. I say it how it is, to the best of my ability. When people are dishonest with me, that's not something that I can change. What I can do is speak up about the people and places that did these things to me. I can show you the evidence from the other victims. People like Natalie Bollinger. I can also show you How many other people were involved? How many people were aware, who were told, who did absolutely nothing about it? Alicia Bollinger could put Ted Bollinger in prison today for the rest of his life. So could Rose M. Kelly. So could Danica Garner. So could Rochelle Shelley Campbell. Isn't this where Ted belongs? Or should I be out here still being victimized as if I'm some sort of pedophile, rapist, murderer? Me and Natalie Bollinger were friends because we both lived through hell. Tim Beeson wasn't just my predator. He was also hers. Ted Bollinger wasn't just my predator. He was also hers. Mount St. Vincent is only the tip of the iceberg. Later in life, it was, until I was 13. By the time I was 13, I was a bit too big for people to force anything on me of that sort. I was also too mean. Yeah, I was skinny. At one point, I was 5'1", 184 pounds, but I got skinny pretty quick when I was about maybe 12, 11 or 12. Yeah, people didn't want to tangle with me, whether they won the fight or lost, because I was going to be dirty. I was in Fairfax, in Washington State, when one of my roommates mounted up on top of me. Blanket on either side of my shoulder, and he started punching me in the face. He wasn't trying to sexually molest me, he just wanted somebody to beat on. Me and him had an argument in one of the groups, and everybody thought it was fine. Well, it wasn't fine, and he was my roommate. So what did I do? Well, we're all wearing sweatpants. That's what we had in the 80s and the early 90s. It wasn't hospital scrubs like you wear today. Or maybe your own clothes from home. No, it was all sweatpants. Everybody wore sweatpants. He mounted up on me. Had a knee on either side of my shoulders. I was pinned down by my own fucking blanket. It was a hard burgundy plastic bed. They're just the stupidest fucking things. And he was hitting me, and I leaned forward, and I stuffed my face into the crotch of those sweatpants, and then I fucking bit down. You ain't doing that shit to me. When I was 13 years of age, I was too experienced for you to fuck with in any sort of way. You were gonna have to kill me. That is what it was gonna take. And I'd grown up with too many black kids by that point to let any of those goddamn crackers try to punk me. Hell no. I ain't getting punked by no white boy. I'll take an ass whooping on principle. I ain't getting punked. The term mentally ill needs to be stricken from all law books. Is too generalized a term. It's also derogatory. It's worse than calling somebody the N-word, because if you call someone the N-word in court, you're not convincing people not to listen to them. When you call somebody mentally ill in court, that's exactly what you're doing. You're trying to discredit them entirely. They're allowed to hold closed court for people they call mentally ill in Colorado. They're allowed to prevent somebody who they call mentally ill from showing evidence, from making statements, from turning in statements. They're allowed to destroy body camera evidence, refuse to requisition evidence. They're allowed to have court without any court observers, friends, or family present. Sure, a lot of that's actually illegal, but they'll make sure it happens that way. They'll make sure that everything is so goddamn expensive that nobody could possibly fucking afford it. Do y'all have any idea how much money I had paid out just in gas money in the first week after Natalie disappeared? Of course you don't. My mom was born in Portland, Oregon. I'm in Tillamook, Oregon, not far from where my grandma Vonnie had my mother. After Natalie was killed, I went to my grandmother's funeral. And Ted Bollinger and his daughter Alicia Bollinger fucked with me for 7 full hours. Laura Nelson was there for it. Graham Milbourne slept through it. And Officer Jordan Anderson didn't take it fucking seriously. Didn't even make a police report. That's nationwide, folks. You know how I end these videos. It's good to be rid of you. Thank you for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and your sister's keeper too. And no victim left behind.